Hello everyone, it's Todd Brown from Next Action Associates. I thought I'd talk today about friction. Friction has been on my mind quite a bit recently, and we talk a lot about friction in the work that we do, how our goal is to, as far as possible, to eliminate friction. That's in the interest of efficiency, of course, and getting the most return on the energy that we expend. But it's also about reducing internal friction, getting rid of the friction in our heads that's the noise that's getting in the way of our getting things done, and in the way of getting in the way of our ability to operate in a stress-free way. But I was listening recently to a broadcast of the BBC. It's a series called The Digital Human with Alex Krotowski, and if you haven't checked it out, highly recommend it. It's wonderful stuff. And Alex's theme a couple of weeks ago was friction, and she was making the point that eliminating all friction is, number one, unrealistic. There's no way we're going to eliminate all friction in our lives. And that, number two, that some friction is actually helpful because it gives us opportunities to grow, to reflect, to face challenges. She was interviewing somebody who was a sort of a mountain climber who chose to do the most extreme mountain climbs that he could find. And for him, friction was actually quite a good thing, right? He was interested in trying to get generate the most friction in his life. And as I was thinking about this, I thought that's quite right. And I think one of the interesting things about getting things done and about our work is that it allows you to choose where the friction shows up in your life. So what I mean by that is, if my goal is to eliminate friction, one thing I can focus on is friction in the day-to-day. What have I delegated to people? Am I keeping track of that appropriately? What meetings have I got coming up? Am I prepared for those? Well, what's the next action to get me ready to complete this project that I might have on at home? And so I can eliminate friction at lower levels, as it were, in terms of the tactical things that are going on in my life. And what I think is quite interesting about that is that quite often, once I feel like I've got, control of those lower levels of the day-to-day, then what it starts to do is make clear to me that there are things that are at higher perspectives not happening. So in other words, the friction in a sense gets transferred from the day-to-day tactical to the, hold on, what's the bigger picture here? Am I making progress towards the bigger outcomes in my life that are important to me? Do I have strategic goals that I'm aware of, or maybe that I've just got a sense that I should have that I haven't spent much time talking about, so or thinking about rather. So as I say, I think what's interesting about this is that in our work, what we're helping people to do in many cases is get control of the fire hose of reality that's turned on them day to day. And the result of that isn't that friction goes away, but friction in a sense becomes clear at different perspectives, at higher horizons, as we say. So all of a sudden I start to think about, am I in the right role? What about the relationships that I have with the people in my life? Are they all getting the right amount of attention from me? So I guess I'd encourage you, as you're thinking about your own practice, your own ways of working, to think, where is the friction in my life? Is the friction in my life in things that can be avoided? Is the friction in my life in things that it feels like I could get rid of that friction and that would be a helpful thing? And again, think about where would you like to have a gap between what is and what could be? Would you like to be thinking more about those higher horizons, that bigger picture stuff? And if so, great. Let's eliminate the friction at the lower levels in your ways of working. And I would expect then that your brain, as it will, your consciousness will naturally kind of float higher. It will say, hey, okay, I've got the lower level stuff handled, and therefore I have the freedom to think about the bigger picture.